Hello, listeners. Mallory Wilsey here, Chief Producer of the Enrollify Network, and I want to take just a moment to tell you about another show on our podcast network designed specifically for higher ed marketing leaders. Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO, hosted by Jamie Hunt, Chief Marketing Officer at Old Dominion University, has become an industry favorite. The show is sort of like a conference in a podcast, offering a blend of professional wisdom, innovative ideas, and personal anecdotes. Whether you're a higher ed marketer, a faculty member curious about the behind the scenes of university branding, or just someone with an interest in the intersection of education and marketing, the podcast is your gateway to the lesser known narratives of higher education. You can subscribe to the show by visiting podcast.enrollify.org or just search Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Mastering the Next, a cutting-edge podcast that explores the future of graduate, online, and non-traditional education through the lens of AI and technology. I'm your host, Dr. Ray Lutsky, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at Element 451. Join me every 2 weeks for discussions with some of the thought leaders shaping the future of graduate enrollment management through technology. Mastering the Next is a part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform that helps institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Today we're talking about OPMs, online program management companies, and what they provide to universities. California Lutheran University partnered with an OPM, AllCampus, to launch 12 new online graduate and undergraduate programs aimed at expanding access to flexible, affordable higher education. This strategic collaboration focuses on enhancing online offerings with support in instructional design, student services, and technology from a private company. This partnership is led by Tom Hoener, Associate Vice President for Enrollment Management at Cal Lutheran, and he joins me now to share his insights. Tom, terrific to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to begin. Tell us what's next for the partnership between California Lutheran University and AllCampus. What was the primary motivation behind selecting an OPM as your partner to go forward?
Yeah, well, it's been a long process, I would say, over a decade of the need for having more online programs here at Cal Lutheran. We are kind of a traditional liberal arts institution. Most of our undergrad students actually live on campus. My focus has been on the graduate side and adult bachelor's side. And even though we're close to Los Angeles, we're about, depending on how heavy the traffic is, we're approximately anywhere from 30 to an hour to Los Angeles. And it's difficult to expand our reach. That's the key thing. And the county that we're in, Ventura County, has an aging population. It's kind of a static population. So it was important for us to expand our reach. So that's been on my mind and other people's minds for quite a while. Then came the pandemic, and the pandemic hit the accelerator on a problem that already existed. And then on top of that, the pandemic created some financial stress for us that as well. And OPM can help support some of that financing that we just don't have in our typical operational budget.
And that's a problem for a lot of schools right now, post-pandemic, that there are constrained resources and the dynamics of their traditional student catchment are changing. So I'm curious, what factors were most influential in your decision to work with an OPM and AllCampus specifically?
Yeah, well, I think the key thing is the building an infrastructure for online is really important, and that costs money. It requires expertise, And that's something we just don't have the bandwidth nor the resources to do here at Cal Lutheran. So for me, I thought that was the most important because once the courses are built out, they can be, maintained in the future, et cetera. But Cal Lutheran owns that asset moving forward. So if the relationship, doesn't expires after the contract, we still have those online courses. So we still have those tools in our basket to try to recruit students. So that was important. Obviously, they also bring marketing expertise. We have a lot of good marketing people on campus, but we just don't have the bandwidth, the size, because our marketing team has to handle an array of things here on campus, not just enrollment related things. So having more people focusing on one topic, enrollment, as a priority, that's a help. And also, I think the research that the OPM can help do as far as marketing research or testing, A/B testing when you're doing ads, that for me is really helpful. I kind of chuckle on that because I get it. I'm tired of arguing about taglines and what's the best photo for an ad. I mean, stuff like that it just goes on and on. And it's nice to be able to let's look at the data. What does the data say versus our opinions? That doesn't seem to go anywhere. So for me, those were all important factors.
So there's a lot of resources coming to
Mhm.
bear there, it sounds like. And clearly, AllCampus is offering a lot to Cal Lutheran. I'm curious what the main goals of the partnership are. What does the university hope to achieve with this partnership, and how are those resources that are coming in aligning with those goals?
Number one, we want to increase access to students. I mean, we know that student demand has changed, student needs and their preferences have changed. So we want to be, we want to remain relevant, to use a word, in this changing times that we have. The goal isn't to, and we have to be realistic that it's not to have an explosion of enrollment, but is to remain relevant and remain sustainable, both in the graduate programs that we chose and also our undergraduate majors for our adult program. So um, I would say having incremental growth that's manageable, incremental revenue growth that's manageable. And one thing that's helpful too is having a partner like this has actually helped us. They're kind of committed to trying to keep price down, and that's obviously something we would like to do as well. And this is a way to potentially keep our prices down because they do the research. We can look at what other schools are charging, and where we should be positioned. Sometimes we haven't been as strategic about that, or have the research to back up like what our price point should be.
It's interesting because I think you've been moving very quickly, and I'm sure that isn't just by accident. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. So maybe you can help us understand the process and maybe some of the challenges you've encountered along the way as you've gone forward,
Sure. Yeah.
initiating this relationship. What came up and how did you address it?
Well, once the contract was signed, obviously there is a lot of things to address. So it's really important for an institution to have a point person kind of being the liaison to whoever the point person is for the OPM. So I'm that person. And so my job is to, keep kind of everything going. And the first stage of it was really working with our IT department, getting all the infrastructure and the systems, data, information flowing both ways from the school to the OPM on different things. The other part was obviously doing a deep dive on all and understanding all the marketing assets and understanding the programs. Also, they're helping us doing some components of the admission work and some retention work as well, getting their staff up to speed, introducing the staff here on campus, and making those relationships with the other staff. The relationship part, like everything in life, is critical. One thing I was happy about working with AllCampus, who's our company, was that I could tell that people were getting along well and respected each other. The challenge is that people are concerned. It's more work for them. There's a lot of uncertainty. People naturally don't like change. But if you start meeting with people and having meetings and going, hey, they're not so bad after all, and they can start seeing how they're actually going to help enhance, complement the work that we're already doing, not seeing them as an outside party taking over, but someone who's actually supplementing the work and making our job actually easier in a lot of ways. When they start kind of changing their orientation to understanding the nature of the relationship, a lot of positive things happen, but that takes time. It takes trust. It takes having lots of meetings, and then once we got that was like the first 3 months, and then it started to segue more on the academic side, and that, as you can imagine, that where it becomes even more complicated because the faculty, they have their preferences, and it's more individualized with each department, each faculty member, and how their opinions about how they want to go about things, et cetera. So, and that's not my expertise. I'm not a faculty member. So I have to trust that they can work with the deans, and the deans with their program directors and with the individual faculty on working things through, and just keep those relationships going. That became very complicated, probably partly because I don't know all the ins and outs of that part, but it did flow, and we're definitely making progress on that.
Hey, it's Mallory, Chief Strategist of Enrollify. Why travel far when an exceptional higher ed conference experience awaits from the comfort of your campus or home office? I'm thrilled to announce that every single session at the 2024 Engage Summit will be live streamed. And the best part? Registration is free. Many of your favorite Enrollify creators are presenting. Maya Demishkovich and Jenny Lee Fowler will teach you how to craft an AI-powered social media influencer strategy. Jamie Hunt will help you unlock the AI revolution in your team. And Shane Baglini and Allison Tercio are teaming up to boost your productivity with generative AI. Plan out your dream conference by scoping out the agenda and taking note of the sessions you want to tune in for. Visit engage.element451.com and register yourself and your team for free today. Now, back to the show.
You hit on an important point, which is when the faculty are engaged, it opens up a whole new dimension of any kind of partnership. And I'm curious, and you said that this isn't an area that you were familiar with initially, but as you went through this process working with the faculty, what were some of the common objections that you heard? As you know, there is a lot of discussion nationally about working with OPMs and what that means, and there are a lot of perceptions out there. And I'm just curious if you heard any specific feedback that had to be addressed or talked through as you worked with different constituencies, particularly the faculty.
There's a lot of layers to that. There's some concerns about OPMs, but first you got to start with the basic concern is having online programs, right? So, and I think the faculty over the, at least the last 5 years after the pandemic and stuff I think a lot of them understand like its value. They had to experience it themselves. So I think the pandemic made them more open to it. I try not to be, I kind of don't get into arguing with people about if online is better than on campus and et cetera, et cetera. I have my own opinions about that, but I try to focus on two things. A, access. We have to meet the student where they're at. And, we can think something's better all we want, but if that's not where the student's at, it is what it is. Also, the second point is online is not going away. That's the future, and it's not going away. It's evolving. So you can argue about something all you want, but I'm a realist. That's the new reality. So you have to get on board. The analogy I use sometimes is like if you I don't know, made horseshoes like in 1910, you probably thought maybe cars were breaking down all the time or whatever, and there's no need to worry about cars. But I'm sure horses were probably more efficient use in the 1910 than maybe cars were, possibly. I don't know, but it's that kind of it's a transition of a way. It's a disturbance. It's technological change. So you either got to get on board or not. So to me, it's a futile even debate, at that point. And then the other part is for our graduate and adult audience, it does expand reach. So if you want to compete in this, there's a lot of very top-notch schools offering these kinds of programs. faculty in the past have gone, well, it's a quality issue, et cetera. But if you can point out like top tier, schools in the country who are doing online, that argument kind of fades away as well. So, there's all that. I try to respect people's opinions, but I try to just stick on the facts and the reality of what's going on.
If you were to use your crystal ball, Tom, and think about the progress you've made so far in your relationships on campus and with AllCampus as your OPM, how do you see things working out? I'm assuming you have a high level of confidence this is going to go well.
I think some programs are more likely to do well than other programs. So I think another thing for people to understand is if a program is just there's a lack of demand for it and it's not a hot program, I mean, you can put it online all you want and have all the advertising dollars you want, but that doesn't mean necessarily going to gain success. So it's got to be a product, it's got to be a need, a demand for something that's actually that will do well in the marketplace, to use a crass word. And I think the our bachelor's degree programs are probably most likely to really excel, largely because those bachelor adult degree programs there's larger audience, that to go after. The like an MBA program, that's a tough haul because there's a lot of online MBA programs. From an enrollment management point of view, it's not just about something growing, it's about let's make sure things don't get worse. And it's a counterintuitive art, I mean, not counterintuitive, it's kind of factual argument to talk to people about, well, if we don't do this, things are going to get worse, so therefore this was still worth doing, right? People don't usually like to hear that, but that is also true. If we don't do this, the numbers start to continue to go down. This is a way of like at least holding the line.
I see your point. It is a necessity to prevent some eventuality. Based on all of this knowledge and your experience working with AllCampus, what advice would you give to a professional at some other educational institution who's now thinking about working with an OPM? What advice would you give them as they go about making that determination, or possibly selecting a company to help them?
The most important thing is realize you got to manage expectations. The OPM is not going to save you. If your school is already in severe trouble, if you have programs that are just not, like I said, in demand, or maybe there's some internal problems that make it just not a very effective program and something that students are interested in, or there's bad word of mouth about the program, the OPM is not going to be the elixir of solving all the problems. So that's number one, to be realistic about that. Number two is you got to have the political will to push it through and make sure that there's other people, key players that are on board, on campus, whatever your internal politics are, to keep it moving, because there will be resistance, there will be doubters, there will be naysayers, and people, like I said, for a variety of reasons, just don't like change or they get nervous about change. So it's really important that all the key leaders are aligned, of trying to make it happen and move it forward. The other thing to keep in mind too is it's going to add a lot of work on people's plates, at least at the beginning, till it normalizes. I'm estimating the first 12 months. I always knew like 6 to 12 months, and that's what it's coming out to. I think by next fall things will be normalized quite a bit, and the workload for a lot of people will diminish because it'll just be kind of part of what we do. So I think you got to navigate those politics and call it what it is. It's true, and be thankful and grateful for the great help that people are offering, but just get them to understand that there's a need there and it's really important and it's everyone's best interest to do it.
Looking down the road, now that you've built these relationships on campus, there is buy-in, there is leadership direction, and we anticipate that there will be a positive outcome. How do you see this evolving?
Well, I'll answer it two ways, depending on kind of how things play out in the next few years. So, people like success, and people who have concerns about it, I think they'll be more willing to eventually, be on board. And I think if we do have some good success, I can see other people, other deans, other program directors, et cetera, and the administration start to think about okay, what other programs might be right for this process and what we're trying to do. So for sure, success breeds success, just like failure breeds failure, and I think so. I think that's critical. So that would be the ideal of all the programs that we're doing do well. I'm not so sure it will be all of them. I think some will do probably really well, and I think some will be like and then I think some may not, will probably disappoint. Like that's just the way life is, right? It's pretty hard to hit 100%. If we're kind of in the middle, kind of like, yeah, we're doing okay and stuff like that, then, I would see when the contract comes up and, 7 years from now or so, that there would be some decisions to have to be made in where the school wants to go. So I can't predict like where we'll be at. So hopefully there will be significant and also noticeable change um, over the next several years.
Well, and we wish great success for Cal Lutheran. It's really exciting and interesting that you're moving on this journey. And it sounds like it's been a real learning experience. And I hope for anyone hearing this interview, it helps them also make those kinds of decisions and navigate through this process the same way. Tom Hoener, Associate Vice President, Enrollment Management at Cal Lutheran, thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights with us.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Mastering the Next podcast is a part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea, and feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Artis Cadieux, J.C. Bonilla, Mallory Wilsey, Brendan Henkel, Brian Gross, and so many other of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.